All right. Welcome to this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Byrne. Evan, how we doing?
Not too bad. We're on a 2-game win streak. A little turnaround from the last few games we've talked about, but can't complain.
Yep. Nice little 2-game. Now, I don't want to say they were against like bad teams because, well, the Raptors are bad. They're bad. They're bad. The Spurs are a perennial playoff contender. Okay, and again, that's a huge credit to Chris Paul because that's who he is. Any team that Chris Paul goes on to, they don't win the finals, but God forbid he's gonna help you become contenders. Why don't we just start with the first game that they played this week against the, I believe it was against the Toronto Raptors.
This past Monday.
Yep, it was a final score of, I believe it was 128 to 104. Yep, There we go. 128-104. Big game from Giannis. Big game from, Damian Lillard. Giannis only had 11 points. Lillard had 25. BP dropping in 20 coming off the bench. Gary Trent, he had about 17. So, and again, Toronto just doesn't have much. Okay. Couple building blocks here or there. They got Emmanuel Quickly. They got RJ Barrett. They got Grady Dick. But, this is just not a good basketball team. They only have 8 wins on the season. So, what did you see in Milwaukee's performance against Toronto?
See, this is what I expect them to do when it comes to playing not so good teams. From the first quarter moving on, the Raptors really had no spot in ever coming back into this game. They held them to under 30 points in all 4 quarters and under 20 points in the first quarter, which allowed the Bucks to kind of get that turn away. Now, the only other big thing about this that kind of kept them somewhat lingering in the first quarter were just a lot of turnovers, leading to automatic points. It wasn't just a turnover and a force-up shot. It was dunk after dunk after dunk. It felt like every other possession. But outside of that, I think my biggest takeaway was the bench. I believe if my math was correct in what I was kind of looking at from the Spurs game when they were talking about it, the Bucks ended up scoring 63 points just from their bench. So that's their biggest bench contribution game this season. Again, kind of talking about it, how you mentioned Bobby Portis. Again, he had 20, and Gary Trent Jr. had 17. He had a couple guys with 10. And just everyone played. So then the lingering 3s, 2s, 5s kind of add up over time as well. But just an overall good game. I felt comfortable with it. Giannis triple-double. Taurean Prince, 8 points. The starting lineup did what they need to do. Everyone contributed in every way. This is a great game, fun game to watch. Not a whole lot really to cover on it. It's just something that I expect them to do every time when they're playing these lower-end teams. And they came out and did exactly what they need to do.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. It's just been one of those things where facing off against the Raptors, you expect Milwaukee to win games like this. Okay, this isn't going to be a performance like they had, about a couple seasons ago where they were up 20 and all of a sudden it went to overtime. It's not the same Raptors team. Okay, They don't have Fred VanVleet anymore. They don't have Gary Trent.
Yep, because now we have.
They don't have Siakam. Okay, they're fully embracing this rebuild, and Milwaukee kind of after the performance they had the previous couple days ago against Portland last week. It's good for them to kind of come out and, just kind of come out with a sense of urgency, against just a really, really poor team. And again, because this has been one of those things where it's like, you didn't want Milwaukee to come out and play down to their competition, which they kind of been known to do at times. But, as I kind of stated earlier, it's like, Giannis only having 11 points. It's like he's always struggled against the Raptors a little bit. They've always had guys who are long and can defend at an extremely high level. So it's kind of good to come out for Damian Lillard to kind of pick up the slack a little bit. And, obviously missing Khris Middleton due to an ankle injury. You just needed the other guys to step up. And, Gary Trent kind of came through in that way. Taurean Prince was kind of able to come through in that way. So, I mean, it's just a good, solid win for this team.
Yeah, and looking at, again, the Raptors, you got RJ Barrett and you got Scotty Barnes, but Grady Dick, again, one of those guys who the last time they played him, I believe in November, he unironically had his career high against the Bucks because that's usually what happens when you play them. And Emmanuel quickly, so kind of two of their key role players not showing up at all. Again, also kind of leveled the Bucks a lot over to kind of have that edge to win. Because again, with Grady Dick only scoring 11 points, Emmanuel quickly also at 11 points. They only made 3 baskets each, but that's one of those things where you make 2 or 3 more baskets each. It's a whole different ball game. So that kind of helped again with their 27 to 30 minutes of game time and not really being able to capitalize on what they're truly there for. So again, that kind of helped. But this was a fun game and a good refresher, especially watching them shoot 50% from threes. Felt comfortable with everything that they did besides the early turnovers.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention Scotty Barnes, who is obviously their franchise player. He dropped in about 21, so and again, Milwaukee shooting almost 60% and dropping in almost like 130 points. That's crazy to me. 22 of 44 from 3, Toronto 9 of 35. I think the biggest issue in this game though was the turnovers.
Yeah, they had 21.
21, like you can't. Like Milwaukee was lucky that they shot the ball as well as they did because you cannot shoot as poorly, or you cannot turn the ball over as much as Milwaukee did and expect to win the game by that large of a margin. We'll talk about this later in the pod, but I still think that turnovers for Milwaukee continues to be an issue. And obviously it was the other night. And I think the other night, the other part I wanted to kind of talk about was the offensive rebounds. 10 offensive rebounds for Toronto. I just feel like there were just way too many possessions where they got at least 3 to 4 chances at the rim. Milwaukee really has to improve on that because, trust me, once you get to the playoffs and once you get to a team that can rebound, they will convert those opportunities. Toronto being poor as they are, they're one of those teams that could get 3 chances at the rim and probably miss all 3. So, it's very, very important that Milwaukee grabs offensive rebounds, because this could make or break a playoff series coming up here in the next few months.
Yeah, I agree. Even if again, a lot of it's just giving up the offensive rebound just in general, I think is already frustrating. Whether they make it or not, it's just, again, wasted possessions that you could be scoring on. So again, it's just one of those things that add up slowly. And again, with the turnovers, which are a lot of the automatic points, I think they had 23 points off turnovers. So yeah, just a lot of sloppy play that could have either helped the Bucks score more or allow them to hold the Raptors to well under 100 points.
Yep. So, moving on to the next game. The Bucks played the other night against the San Antonio Spurs. Nice little ESPN matinee. Nice little 8 p.m. game. Haven't seen those so far this year. I believe they won that game 121 to 113. 121 to 105. Mm-hmm. It's and I understand it's a team game, but Giannis versus Wemby, I think was obviously at the top of everyone's minds.
Yeah.
There's certain moments where Wemby's a budding star, obviously, and I think he's gonna be a budding star in this league. But there were moments where Giannis was taking this man's lunch money. I just think that, as tall as Wemby is, I just still think Giannis is still that much stronger. And I don't think Wemby is he's a freak of nature. Do not get me wrong. That reverse layup he made on Giannis, that was insane. And that's an unworldly play, and only like I think only he could have made that play. But yeah, all Giannis has to do is body him up, and he's pushing back 2 feet. Like I just don't think Wemby physically can deal with Giannis. And you saw there was a couple moments the other night where Giannis just looked that much stronger than Wemby. So outside of that, what did you see in Milwaukee's performance against San Antonio?
Again, just another really good game. I wasn't expecting it too much to be this much of a point difference. I feel like the Bucks scoring 121 on them was a little interesting just because again you have someone like Wembanyama down in the paint. But I would say like my key takeaway from it was AJ Green, 4 3-pointers. He had the one that went viral of him shooting it over Wembanyama in the corner, a little step back, and then the next play he had like a deep 31-foot shot. So I feel like he was one of those key guys just because, again, with that counterpart with Wembanyama guarding him, super fun to see. But then outside of him, just in general, you had a really good shooting game from Lillard. And along with Brook Lopez, shot just under 50% from both the field and 3-pointers in general. But it's always a good day when Brook Lopez scores above 20 points. Again, another good scoring game from Giannis. This was our first game with Khris Middleton come off the bench, and I felt like it did well because, again, it gave him a little more production off the bench. Not necessarily a great scoring game for him with 8 points, but he was able to kind of help facilitate the offense when he is out there coming off the bench with Bobby Portis, Gary Trent Jr. As well. But, just a really good overall game, a really fun game. I had to rewatch it just because I was working that night, but no, kind of exciting to see Wembanyama come into Milwaukee and have the Bucks kind of dominate him. He didn't have like the strongest game shooting, only 4 of 10, toss in 10 rebounds. But again, you kind of expect this guy to just pop off against anyone. But it was kind of nice to be able to defend him through the aspects of the game, especially how hot he started, 7 points in the first few minutes to only end with 10 points for the rest of the game. So a good turnaround on him defensively.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I think another performance that cannot be understated. AJ Green. Tell you what, that guy, he has
Slinging
been
him.
just like we've talked at length about how good we think AJ Green is. But when he made that 3 over Wemby, I was like, "Oh, this guy is shooting at another level right now." Like he's probably statistically this year been one of the best 3-point shooters, like in the NBA this season. It just feels like he just does not miss. Now, granted, anytime you Google AJ Green, it's still coming up as AJ Green, the football player. But 14 points, 4 of 7 off the bench. Cannot be overstated how good he's been. Okay, and even the other night and even last week's game against the Portland Trailblazers, 7 of 13, 21 points. Like AJ Green, Gary Trent, all those guys have been really rock solid for us. And especially Gary Trent, because early on in the season, he was really struggling shooting the basketball. And now all of a sudden, he's just been top of the line. Like, he's improved a lot. And that's what's kind of helped Milwaukee, pick up a few of these wins.
Yeah, Gary Trent going 5 of 5 from the field, 4 of 4 from 3. A lot of his just being in the fourth quarter in general. Like almost back-to-back possessions, it felt like he was hitting a corner 3 or right off the wing. But no, just being able to have AJ Green start to like solidify himself a lot more is a lot more beneficial, I would want to say, for the Bucks, just because, again, you have guys who have the potential, but some guys who obviously don't live up to the potential, like we've had guys in the past. But just kind of knowing that we have a guy off the bench, technically 2 guys off the bench, who are capable of coming in and making 3 to 5 3-pointers a game, whether it's simultaneously or kind of every other, they're kind of trading off. But it's reassuring to kind of have, just because AJ Green last year, like rookie year, like, the start of his come up, seeing the potential, and this year being able to get more minutes regularly than the playing every few games last season. It's really helped. And it's exciting, man, where I feel like we're one of the day one believers in AJ Green. I felt like we praised him a lot last year, and it's it's exciting to kind of see the potential he has, and seeing him get consistent minutes every game has been a lot more fun to watch just because we know what he's capable of doing. And again, just watching him shoot over Wembanyama, arms over him like this, and just being able to toss it up and just absolutely draining. It's fun to watch.
Yep. So like we said before, solid win against the Spurs, 121-105. A couple notable performances. Keldon Johnson for the Spurs, 24. Chris Paul, 18. Wemby was held to 10. Giannis, Lillard, Brook, Giannis 25, Lillard 26, Lopez 22, Green and Gary Trent had 14 coming off the bench. 14 coming off the bench, which actually involved another notable figure, Khris Middleton, who actually missed the game against the Raptors due to an ankle injury. He had 8 points coming off the bench, which actually segues me into my next segment. What was your reaction when, or what do you think about Khris Middleton now is going to be coming off the bench to kind of lead the second unit?
It's kind of weird just to like know that in the past few years he's been like our number one shooting guard, and now to kind of see him be that bench role. Obviously, it's like Russell Westbrook, went from super high starting potential to now a bench player. Obviously, the two skill level is a lot different, but I'm all for it. It was kind of surprising, but I really wasn't surprised at all. It'll definitely give them a more leverage with that second rotation. Just again, to have that leader out there, whether he's going to have a good shooting game or not, it's always nice to again have someone who's able to run the offense. So when you're taking out Giannis and Lillard at once, you can still rely on him to help officiate everything going out on the floor. And then again, you have guys like Gary Trent and AJ Green being able to be out there. Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, you got the guys to kind of help rebound. So I'm all for it. Just kind of stinks to kind of see that that's the way that his career has kind of turned the last few years with his injuries. But, it's something that makes the most sense. Obviously, he's agreeing with it. There's no like backlash on it at all that we've been notified of, the fans. But, I'm all for it. Just again, just a weird turnaround from the championship run to seeing him be a bench player. But, I'm all for it. Whatever we can do to help scoring off the bench contribute more.
Yeah, and that was probably the other thing too, is I don't think people probably wasn't meshing that well with Giannis and Lillard, because it's like now Middleton all of a sudden has to find his role, or find like where he fits into the offense. And I think in the end, it's just like it was just kind of a weird sort of mix, because it's like, I mean, Ajax, like, love him or hate him, I think he's just been better for, what Giannis and Lillard like to do more so than Middleton, because I'm not saying Middleton necessarily needs the ball in his hands, but, you have 3 offensive-led guys, so one of them is going to have to take a back seat, and it would have been Middleton. So I think Middleton adding in that scoring presence off the bench is going to be a lot better versus, hey, because I don't know if you've noticed, but like Ryan Rollins has taken over Daylon Wright's minutes. Daylon Wright was not good heading earlier in the season. Obviously, one of the free agent signings. Ryan Rollins has taken in those minutes, and now it's like Middleton can easily get the ball in his hands. He can get his shots up because he has a guy who's like a pass first guard. And I'm not saying Wright wasn't, but like Ryan Rollins, he's been defending better. He's been shooting a little better, and this is kind of what the Bucs season has been so far. It's like these unheralded guys are stepping into bigger roles, and now it's just, they've kind of helped turn Milwaukee's season around.
Yeah, and this season, a lot of people have given backlash to Doc Rivers both this year and then once he took over, but I feel like he does a lot better with playing the guys who are deserving of minutes. Last year, and even with Budenholzer, Pat Connaughton would still be playing regularly. And then all the other guys who aren't as deserving of minutes, when Jay Crowder was playing, and all those older veteran guards who really don't have it a lot anymore were still getting minutes, and we were watching all the other guys with higher potential kind of stay on the bench, not get the minutes they deserve. It's a good turnaround, though, just being able to see what's been working. We got DeLon Wright. That was supposed to be a good defensive pickup. But when he plays, he has his good days, but matchup wise, there's just not been a lot of ways to have him contribute with other guys on the team who can clearly do it at a higher level. So it's a weird turnaround, but I feel like Doc Rivers deserves a little bit of praise and respect for being able to give the guys the minutes and kind of know who's worthy of playing certain specific games, especially throwing AJ Green randomly on Wembanyama during some of the portion of the game and have it somewhat work at times. But yeah, no, I've gotten a little more respect for Doc Rivers, and I've enjoyed the way that they've been playing as of recently. Whether it's in a win or a loss, I feel like there's a lot of things that are meshing a lot more. And I think moving Khris Middleton to the bench is one of those things that is going to help future games and just kind of further on into the season.
Yeah, so let's kind of talk about that a little bit. So who do you think has emerged for you out of some of those unheralded guys, as I mentioned before?
I want to say the biggest is Ryan Rollins, just because it's a random. You can kind of expect Gary Trent Jr. to have an emergence in scoring. AJ Green again showed the potential last year, but then you get Ryan Rollins, who hasn't been known from the other teams that he's played on to be that guy, and to have him come up, hit a couple threes, play really well defensively, just to kind of fit into the role and be more. Trying to think of the word reliable while being out on the floor. Especially with some of the rotations he's in. He's not getting garbage minutes. He's playing over some of the guys who have been here for the last few years. So I kind of want to put him as the guy of the unexpected player who's kind of worked out in the long run. Obviously, not he's going to play every regular minute or game, but when he is in, I feel like he gives us what he is worth and what we want to get out of him.
I'm actually aside with you on that one. I think Ryan Rollins has been coming up massive for Milwaukee, especially on the defensive end. And again, I think a lot of that goes to the credit of, Buck's unpaid assistant coach, which you want to call him, Rajon Rondo.
Mm-hmm.
I think those two, I think for the most part, they've worked really well together. And I think, and not even just Rondo, but I think Rivers has a good staff that are basketball junkies. So I think to help develop a guy like a Rajon Rondo, like a Ryan Rollins, I think that's been huge for this team. And again, he's been taking over, these guys are cutting into, guys like Rollins, for example, he's cut into DeLon Wright's minutes, and Pat Connaughton or AJ Green's cutting to Pat Connaughton's minutes. So it's not even just guys who are accustomed to playing a lot of NBA basketball aren't playing as much this year, and it's because of unheralded guys like a Ryan Rollins, like a AJ Green. So, I agree with you on that. I think Ryan Rollins has been one of the biggest factors in helping Milwaukee turn its season around.
And again, it's nice. The Bucks have scores. You have Giannis, you have Lillard, AJ Green, Gary Trent, Taurean Prince at times can score, Brook Lopez at times can score. So you have plenty of guys who are able to put up 15 plus points, whether that's 25 and up, 30 and up, kind of depending on the range. But when you have then guys like Andre Jackson Jr., who's not here to score, he played 11 and a half minutes, shot once, didn't score, but he's here to play defense. He's good at volleying out the ball. You got Ryan Rollins, again, good off-ball defense, able to get a couple steals a game. But sometimes, he can contribute 8 to 10 points. Again, it's some of those things where it's what we get the guy to do, and then they add in a little more that's not necessarily expected, but more rewarding. Helps out a lot. That was basically like Javon Carter, here for defense, but had games where he could hit a couple threes. So it's always rewarding when you can get those guys who are here to do one thing, but when they add in offense or whatever you want to add into the game, it helps out a lot. And again, always helps for the long playoff runs as well.
Yep. So now let's kind of talk about the negatives for Milwaukee. The turnovers have just been It's not even just the fact that turnovers do happen in an NBA game. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is there are just some games where Milwaukee is just extremely careless with the basketball. I think with Giannis being like the worst violator
Hmm.
of like turning the ball over way too much, because I just think sometimes like Milwaukee just either lazy with the basketball or they just a lot of careless passes. So do you see the turnovers as like an issue? Because as I see it right now, okay, I think Giannis averages 3 turnovers a game this season. So I mean, do you see turnovers as an issue for like Milwaukee? And by the way, Lillard's also 13th on this list.
I definitely do see it as an issue. Like if you were to put into perspective, the Bucks again against the Raptors, they won by 24 points, but they still had 21 turnovers. Now, if you put that into perspective, and let's say they had 21 turnovers against the Celtics, they're going to get absolutely blown out. It's just kind of the perspective of if you turn the ball over a lot, let's really hope it's against a bad team, and you're able to just end up outscoring them either way, which happened in that Raptors game. But it is frustrating to see your star guy. Giannis had 7 turnovers against the Raptors. That's a third of their turnovers just in general. But I feel like it's constantly just sloppy play, passes that shouldn't be being made. They try to get a little fancy. I know Giannis had one against the Spurs where he went for the behind the back pass to get it to a corner and just completely threw it 10, 15 feet out of bounds. So it's one of those things where again turnovers happen, but I feel like with how the Bucks turn the ball over, it's just careless at that point, and there are ways around it that they got to figure out a lot more. Just because again, having 21 turnovers is not a good look overall, and it's definitely something that can be a pivotal game changer. If you have a certain amount of points off of turnovers and you lose by 3 points, that was 2 turnovers right there that you carelessly gave up, and that's like the turning point of the game. So it's definitely can be something that can hurt him in the long run. You just got to kind of know based off of the team you're playing against and what's going to be like the pivotal point of, all right, we're turning the ball over a lot. How can we make up for it on a different end? But definitely something to kind of look out for, because it's not just this season. It's been like that for, I feel like, for quite some time.
Yeah, and kind of looking it up, Milwaukee averages 13 turnovers a game. Giannis again, he has averages about 3 a game. Lillard has 2. Like, so I mean, again, and it's not even surprising because like these two guys are probably the two most players who have the ball in their hands the most. So I'm not even surprised about the fact that they turn the ball over like 13 times a game. But like, still, you do want to kind of cut that number down just a little bit because
Mm-hmm.
like it's just extreme carelessness with the basketball, and it hurts your team in the end. Um, now I'm on a bit of a turnover. Like 13's a lot, especially for guys like Giannis and Lillard. Like you just want them to stop being so careless with the basketball. But I just think the biggest issues with this team right now are the turnovers and then like just allowing way too many offensive rebounds. I just think that as soon as Brook Lopez gets out of the game, there's just a significant drop off of guys maybe not willing to grab like a defensive rebound, and that's a concern. I just think anybody who's on the court should all be willing to grab an offensive rebound, and sometimes I feel like it's kind of left up to Bobby Portis,
Mm-hmm.
and where I think everybody should be crashing in. Um, I do think there's some ball watching that goes on sometimes. Guys just looking up at the rim,
And
and
he'll get it. He'll get it. And
and
then
then just
all three of
nobody
them are thinking
like
that.
like the other day, like I was getting mad because like the Raptors, even though they were gonna win, just like 3 chances at the rim, and I just think that comes down to coaching, and I think that there needs to be a more accountability to grab it offensive because that shit's important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like that shit will win or lose you a playoff series because playoff teams convert those opportunities. They're lucky they're playing against the Raptors, but if you're playing the Celtics and you're offensive rebounds, you're not winning that series. Okay, I'm bringing this up right now because this is all about the little details, okay? Making your free throws, offensive rebounds, turnovers. It is all about the little shit that can make or break a playoff series. So I'm bringing this up right now to hope that it gets fixed in the next few months, because if it doesn't, this team is not going very far in the playoffs.
I 100% agree. Like, again, the last podcast, we're talking about the losses against Brooklyn, the Bulls, and the Trailblazers. Like, their biggest loss was 5 points.
Yeah.
So, again, that's the small things. You make a couple more free throws. You don't turn the ball over as much. That led to a fast break layup or dunk. And it's all the small things that add up over time where you're fighting on offense. You're still hitting your shots when you do get a shot up, but you turn the ball over 12 times and they score 11 points or 10 points off of turnover, however you want to mathematically equate that. But yeah, no, it's going to add up. And again, if you're playing teams who are clearly capable of capitalizing on that, there is no chance in you winning those games, especially if it's a continuing thing where one game, you have 20 and the next one you have 6. It's not going to be that much of a difference. But, playing teams like the Knicks and the Celtics, the Magic, all those top seeded teams who are clearly capable and have guys who can easily convert a turnover is rarely going to bite you in the ass later into the playoffs. So definitely something to kind of turn around about. But people, I feel like, just don't understand like the small details about basketball of missing free throws again, turnovers, offensive rebounds. It's frustrating, and it's definitely something that can lose them a game easily to any team in general.
Yep. So, Evan, you got anything else?
We got a game tonight against the Magic. I believe, if I heard correctly, Paolo Banchero's back for the first time in 3 months, so that's a very Bucks thing to happen to them. Can't confirm it, but I'm very positive. And then Sunday against the Knicks, both away games. And then they're not back home until Tuesday and Wednesday of next week against the Magic and the Kings. Got a lot of games coming up in the next week and a half or so, 2 weeks.
Yep. So, and by the way, quick note, the game against the Knicks, hopefully they do better this time in the first time around. I believe I don't think they faced each other since October, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, since earlier on in the season. Yeah,
Okay,
I don't think they have.
So I think Doc Rivers is aware that Brook Lopez can't guard Karl Anthony Towns, so
Correct.
maybe not have that be the matchup. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in to this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. We'll see you guys next week.